Hey everybody, it is your boy Captain Hunter coming at you again. Ever notice that everybody's your boy or your girl or whatever, right? Everybody's your boy, everybody's your girl. So listen, I want to jump in here and do a quick rant. I always say that, but it's not going to be quick. I'm going to tell you that right now. So I already know that, but you already know by the length of the title. I don't know how long it's going to be, but it's going to be a long one here. So do me a favor, make sure that you guys do hit that thumbs up button, share it, like it, all that kind of stuff. Would really, really appreciate it. Um, So I got a question. Somebody asked me a question about what I thought about the Joe Biden police executive police executive order that he's going to sign in for today. So let me just try to give a breakdown of what's going on within law enforcement, right? And I want to attack this from a number of different angles here. And so we've known since the 1960s or so 1960s, 1970s, about many of the issues that have been going on with law enforcement, right? We've known through different commissions, the Kerner Commission, and there's another one that was performed in the 1960s. I can't remember the name of it or the so-called nickname of it. But these different commissions have analyzed law enforcement. In particular, the Kerner Commission looked at the plight or the arguments or the disagreements, the riots that were happening between law enforcement and persons of color. Then there was another commission that launched around the same time, looking at law enforcement in general. Right? What do we do about law enforcement? How do we make law enforcement better, more professional, and things like that? And from those commissions, we had the rise of we had the rise of internal affairs and professionalization of law enforcement. A lot more executives started going to school, going to colleges, setting up more academic processes and how they dealt with law enforcement. So a lot of these issues have been known for a long time. So I start off with that because I think that it's important that we understand that some of these things that are being brought to our attention are not new, right? Right. We've known this is 2022. We've known for a long time that chokeholds have been a problem. In the 1990s, they were banned in New York City, and lo and behold, or at least yes, they were banned. Right? Not only not would New York City Police Department not allowed to teach them, but they were actually actively banned. Right? Don't use them. And so we get an officer who uses his chokehold against department policies, and then doesn't is indicted and convicted. Right? So again, we have to look at um, I'm talking about the Eric Garner case there. Obviously, I'm right. This is a problem not of local law enforcement, but the tacit approval of the citizens or who they're protecting, right? And some people not being deemed worthy and deserving of full protection under the law, right? That's all that came down to. Right? They looked at a black man, black skin, and said that this man isn't worthy of the full protection of the laws uh, because this man used something he shouldn't have used. The police officer used something he shouldn't have used. Absolutely madness. So I'm getting off on a rant here and going on different rabbit holes. I'm going to try to stay on point, and try to stay on task. So we've known that these things have been a problem for a long time. So lo and behold, 2 years ago, 2 years ago from this video, we get the terrible case of George Floyd. It sparks not only national protests but international protests. Black Lives Matter blows up, and everybody's saying this, right? We got Walmart putting out freaking ice cream, Juneteenth ice cream. Everybody's on Juneteenth and celebrating black heritage, black culture, black this, black that. Absolute madness. So, in the meantime, Congress, after George Floyd, can't get anything done. Can't get anything done, right? They're fighting about qualified immunity. Uh, Tim Scott, representative, or excuse me, senator from South Carolina on the Republican side, can't get anything done. Not necessarily that it's completely 100% his fault. He just doesn't have the support, and there is no support. I did a video about this. There is no plan to do anything about gun violence. There is no plan. The plan is thoughts and prayers. The plan is just to let it die down. There is no plan to do these things. So we have to take things into our own control. So Tim Scott was unable to get anything done. So lo and behold, now a year after that, and a year after that, now here we are with President Joe Biden going to sign some executive order that's going to limit the scope and the abilities of federal law enforcement, the FBI, ATF, uh, Homeland Security, Border Patrol, these particular agencies, right? So how often are they in the news about doing something? Not saying that they don't do anything, or they're not performing the wrong knock and announce warrant or no knock warrant and all that. So I'm sure that it happens, but it's nowhere near. The press is nowhere near the media frenzy when local law enforcement doesn't. So this executive order that he's going to sign is going to affect those individuals, federal agents, nothing to do with local law enforcement. Now, local law enforcement has, which is controlled by cities or towns or counties, sometimes even states. They have and are doing something. Have passed Many of them have passed legislation looking at no knock warrants, limiting qualified immunity, chokeholds, body worn cameras, transparency, and all that kind of stuff. So a lot of them are addressing those types of issues. So we got to give credit to those agencies who are trying to reform their practices and are trying to step into the light. More implicit bias training, more cultural diversity training, more ladies in uniform and in leadership positions and things along those lines. So those are all different things that will help to tamp down on the so-called aggression or whatever's going on in law enforcement. I think those things have definitely changed. A lot of agencies are still trying to actively recruit from minority population. So all those are good. So I think that Joe Biden's what he's going to do is an okay start. It shows the ineffectiveness of our politicians to get anything done that are substantial and that the people want. Roe versus Wade, 70% of the population think that that's okay, but they want to change that, or at least they want to change it through the court systems. We don't have any money for this. We don't have any money for that. But all of a sudden, we can find $40 billion and more money for Ukraine. We need to change. We need to do something about protecting our young innocent children who are not born. Um, through Roe v. Wade and all that, we need to overturn that. But lo and behold, for actual children who are actually being slaughtered in school in Sandy Hook and in Columbine, and now this newest one in Oviedo or however it's pronounced, Texas. Well, we all we have for you is thoughts and prayers. This is disgusting beyond um, any imagination that I could ever give. I think that we really need to do something concerning the Constitution of the United States. I think it's time that we actually kind of revamped it. I really do. We need to take a look at the filibuster, gerrymandering, taking a look at, this idea that the politicians can redistrict and choose their constituents rather than the constituents choosing them. I think that term limits are in order and necessary. I think that there's ought to be a checklist for when and if people are ineligible to run again. If you get in there, I saw a meme one time that said Warren Buffett had allegedly said that if people get into Congress and do not and are not able to pass a budget, then they should be ineligible for office. I think that individuals who get in there and vote against who vote against or refrain from voting or absentee ballots or whatever, not ballots, but don't cast a vote, should be ineligible for office, right? If you get in there, if 70% of your constituents think that whatever, students ought to wear seatbelts on buses, and you vote against that, then you ought to be ineligible for office, right? Academic scholarly surveys ought to be able to rule the day, and if persons don't want something, or if they do want something, then the politician, the senator, the the representative has a mandate to vote along the lines of his constituents, not along the lines of um, moneyed interests. So I think that those really have to change. Um, so again, my thoughts, my actions on this idea of uh, again executive order. I'm not in favor of them. Again, I'm not in favor of executive order. Trump right, left, doesn't matter. Trump, Obama, whatever. In this particular case, I think it's a little bit different. Once again, I think it's a little bit different because his actions will be guided towards the federal agencies. But again, I think it highlights the problems that we have with our leaders who are just ineffective, unless it's somehow going to steer towards the money interest. And we can't seem to get anything done. Saw a post from Senator Chris Murphy basically almost coming to tears over the fact that we can't get anything done about gun violence. Listen, isn't that a given right for us to live freely, to do what we need to do, to go where we want to go without fear of tyranny? Fear, and that tyranny is not just the government, right? We ought to be free from that type of thing. We ought to be able to go to the movies, go to the nightclubs, go to stores, go to the mall, go to a school, and not be terrorized because someone is suffering from mental illness or racism or whatever, right? I think the same amount of effort that was put into dismantling black liberation organizations, so called, the Black Panthers, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, all these different individuals and organizations along the way ought to be put into following up with all these different terrorist organizations. Follow them around the internet, shut them down, sue them, take their finances and resources and all that kind of stuff. I think that is a necessary evil that we really, not even a necessary evil, that is something we really have to do in order to stamp out this problem. We're going to have more copycats, more mimics, more copycats, more persons with mentally disturbed ideations who are going to continue to stalk churches and to continue to stalk synagogues, continue to stalk um, uh, black enterprises, black community centers, etc. Um, and they're just going to continue to come out the woodwork, right? And they're stalking schools, they're watching, they're laying. And how much mental illness is there when they're planning these events 6 months in advance? We really got to do something about this. So it's an okay start. It's an okay start, but this is not. This is a drop in the bucket as far as what we need from our government. What we need from our government is protection. We need from our government is relief from the financial impacts that are coming along. We have $40 billion to give to individuals, but we don't have money for health care. We don't have money for our veterans and soldiers who go to war and come back, um, to give them the proper medical care and attention and deal with their post-traumatic stress disorder when they return. We don't have, um, we don't seem to have enough resources to send enough people to college to get these things done so we can have more therapists, more counselors, more doctors to deal with these types of things. It's really, really disgusting. And we really need to band together and really find a way to do something about this. Um, I think again we got to take a look at the Second Amendment. I think we got to take a look at the Constitution overall, the filibuster, gerrymandering, choosing their own elected electors, the constituents. Term limits. I think there's a lot of things that this executive order is really bringing to light that I think more people need to talk about. It took 2 years for this to come into play. Granted, unfortunately, states were acting. Local police departments were acting. Kudos to all of them who were acting, even when the government the big federal government was not up to speed. Right? Think about 9/11. After 9/11, one of the recommendations of 9/11 was some kind of federal identification system for travelers and all that. It took 10 years for that to come through. 10 years, right? And some states fought it, don't want to do that. This whole fight that we have over states' rights versus federal rights versus big government. Um, you know, the hypocrisy is through the roof with all that, right? We don't want that, but the founding fathers, so called, didn't want the government to be full-time government officials either, right? They expect you to work your farm, come 3 months out the year or so, pass a couple of laws and go back to your farm. They didn't want a long-standing government, army, military. We are the largest in the world. Something like largest, or as far as the military expenditures, we spend more on that than the next 10 countries combined. So this idea that we don't want big government, we don't. it's absolute nonsense. Some things we definitely should scale back. And I don't want to go down these different rabbit holes, but this is the point of what I'm saying is we got to do something. We got to do something. Unfortunately, they are doing something, but we, as persons, as individuals, as constituents, as voters, taxpayers, we got to do more and stand up to these politicians and tell them and chant to them, do your job, make them do their job. They're beholden to these corporations, beholden to the NRA, beholden to these the corporations who don't want anything done. And it's a terrible shame because our kids are suffering. The same people who are pushing to return Roe v. Wade ought to be pushing for the sanctity and dignity of life once those children are walking around with backpacks on the school grounds. They ought to be pushing for the same dignity of life to make sure that these kids get the mental health that they need. Same dignity to make sure that they have food sources in before school programs, after school programs, daycare programs. It's the same thing. If you care about life, then you have to care about life, and you care about the kids, the innocent little babies, and making sure that they can grow up. And let's make sure they can grow up in a terror-free zone. Ugh. And let's make sure that our officers are doing the job and they have the equipment necessary, they have the training necessary, they have the mental capacity that's necessary to do their jobs. That's it. That's my rant. Make sure you let me know your thoughts. Am I wrong about this? Am I off? Uh, is everything just fine and dandy? Is there more that needs to be done? What are your thoughts? What are your opinions? What are your thoughts about an executive order? Again, the executive order is just going to deal with body cameras, chokeholds, a national database. Again, I brought up the things at the beginning because we've known these things in the 1960s. We've known that these things were problems. A national database. One cop gets fired or is under investigation in New Jersey, he can go to Indiana and become a cop somewhere else out there. That stuff's got to stop. It's got to stop. It's got to stop. So, national database to deal with all that body cameras, chokeholds, use of force, no knock warrants, all these things will be scaled down drastically by the federal government. But again, your local police department may or may not get on board with these types of things. So, what are your thoughts? What are your opinions? Let me know. Let me hear from you.